One of the things I heard this morning was a fabulous story by Jean Houston about a woman who wanted to take a journey to the teacher of the age. And she ended up on a mountaintop after a very difficult journey. And she walked in the door. She had other opportunities. She could have taken a great vacation somewhere or done something else, but no, she really wanted to get there. She walked in the door, and there he was, sitting there in all of his glory. And she said, the woman says, "Morris, come home." And so I think part of the inspiration for me about that story is that's exactly what I want to talk about, is what it means to come home. She meant to come back into the world. Often when we talk about going home, feeling home, we feel something inside ourselves where we feel seated, where we feel an immediacy, we feel present to something that's real, that's fundamental, and we feel like we've landed home. But there's also the home of our humanness, where we've learned about being a human being, which is this world that we love, that we care about, that we live in. That's home too. In fact, human being is really the human that comes from humus, which is earth. Beingness is that existential presence that we know ourselves to be, that's our existence, that's our nature, that we search for, that we feel meaningless without. And the two together are really speaking to the two sides of what it is to be a human being. Our earthly presence and the presence beyond time and space and beyond this earth plane. But we feel them both to be true and real and not illusory. So I feel that everything that's been said and that we've been hearing since entering this conference is really an angle and a piece, and it's a beautiful mandala that's developing. So it leaves me with getting to say some of the things that haven't been said yet, since there's been so much that has been said. I want to stand on the shoulders of that brilliance and shine a different light. And that light I want to shine is about what it means to truly be a person. We don't say, even though our dogs, animals, the primates have different kinds of human characteristics, things we can relate to or things we project onto them, we don't refer to them as people. A person is a Homo sapien. By the way, that means wise man. I think it was a very ambitious title. I think we are learning what it means to be wise. We're knowledgeable. We're able to go to incredible spaces and places in our minds with our knowledge. To me, wisdom really is using that knowledge in a way that allows us to have a graceful application. And it brings with it the being side is what brings wisdom, not just knowledge. But we have to really know the beingness of our nature, which is something that is the stuff of mystery. So a human being is something that develops. We have to learn about being human. It isn't a given. It's something that develops. And I want to kind of cycle back to some of the conversations that have happened over the years about consciousness. To really understand what the human being is, we have to understand something about what human consciousness is, what your individual consciousness is. That your nature, your roots, all of us have them in the same ground, both metaphorically, metaphysically, and actually practically. On this earth, our feet are on this ground. But in the invisible world, We have a ground that is our nature, that's a unity of being. We can see it as an ocean of consciousness, an ocean of love, an expanse, and an infinite emptiness, presence. We can experience it in many, many different ways. But that ocean has a current in it that is very particularly you, and you can dissolve into that ocean, but it's very specifically your experience. It's your consciousness that's dissolving and experiencing that in that moment. When you dissolve into the ocean and the vastness, not everyone's feeling that way. That's you, that's yours. And it's possible to know consciousness, not just the function of consciousness, not that you are aware of something. It's possible to experience your individual consciousness as a medium, an actual palpable medium that is a clear presence, a fullness that is conscious of itself, that you feel an immediacy, and that fullness and immediacy is an impressionable medium. We think of our history as part of what makes us human. We think of our parents as part of what made us human. Our experiences that we've collected. If you open those neurons in your brain, that experience doesn't pop out as a little picture. There's something there that carries all of these impressions from your neurons, from your experiences, that is beyond just the physical. The medium of consciousness is an impressionable presence, and it lives in us, in the body. It is us. That consciousness is what we are. And you can experience, like when you have a feeling, when you feel pain, you feel it here. And you can say, okay, your neurons are firing with memories and associations. When you're racked with pain or feeling the bursting, celebratory enthusiasm of joy and beyond your body, what is that is it's not a neuron that's feeling yourself as an expanse or a bursting out. What is that can feel like a contraction deep within you or an expansion far outside of you? That is something that when you feel it and you know it and whatever quality shows up with it, it's clear to you that it's beyond any idea that you've had about it, any affect that you felt before, or any kind of sensation that's physical. It's a very different quality. So it starts with, we can feel our physical pain or other things, but we feel them all kinds of places. Now that can have an interface with our neurons and our neural networks and our memory. But the point here is that there's something of a medium that's alive, and that consciousness is what I call the soul. That the soul is a living, dynamic presence, part of the ocean of consciousness. That ocean of consciousness lives through its forms that it creates. And it creates life forms capable of consciousness, and that consciousness develops. We grow, we learn, we celebrate, we feel impacted. We're vulnerable souls, or we're defended souls. And that defense we can feel, just as we can feel when that defensiveness or resistance opens up, we feel the spaciousness of our being. What is it that can go through all of those different kinds of experiences that we can know and feel, and it's not just an abstract emotion or sensation, it's an immediate feeling. So I want to come back to bringing Morris home. coming back into the world. We can recognize our realization. We can have a spiritual life, an inner life, but we crave interaction. We want to be able to find ways of being realized, knowing what we are, being free, and having a relationship. Or having a family and being real. We want to be real. We don't want to just leave the world. Some people do. Some people do just want to, if I can just transcend all this and feel myself outside of it, great. Some people, though, feel transcendent and often come to me saying, listen, I know my nature. I've had these vast, incredible experiences, but when I get off that zafu, I'm lost. I don't know how to make contact, interact as that. I go back into this shell. I go back into my ego. That's where the rubber meets the road. Many traditions throw out the ego because it's wrong. It's not true nature. That's a very egoic perspective. Rejection is one of the hallmarks of ego. That's a self-rejection. One of the beautiful things about being a human being is our tremendous curiosity. But we often don't get very curious about ourselves, the things that we feel are going wrong, our reactions, our issues. We want to find a way to get through them and get rid of ourselves. Again, that is not the attitude of the welcoming openness of true nature, of our nature, of that vastness. That's a relationship that comes only with ideas about what we ought to be, not what we are. The ego is the first stage in the development of a human person. It is not a mistake. It's exactly the right thing that should be happening. It just isn't the only thing that should be happening. Once you have really gained understanding of what an ego is, as you've entered into it, you start to crack that egg a little bit. And then you start to cook it with insights and bring in the knowledge of what it means to be really, truly present here in a personal way, where you can make contact with another and become truly informed by being. And as such, you are a human being. You have learned to be human, and that continues to develop and grow and change and bring in more and more integration of the states that you learn about and feel as what you are. And that continues forever, as far as I can tell. I hope it never stops. So the human being becomes more and more and more of a human being, more of a true person. Rather than being impressed by history, we're impressed by the qualities of the vastness of our nature and the incredible mystery that we are, that's invisible. And we're like a lens for that to come through. So we become more and more transparent. That vulnerability of spirit means, at the beginning, we're vulnerable physically, just as biological organisms. But that's a perfect parallel to the vulnerability of mind, heart that we have, that we're capable of. And that vulnerability is an opening to the human realm. In fact, we don't really consider people human until we feel that their hearts are open and available. If they're defended, we don't feel that we're really meeting another, that we're really feeling another. We're not actually in contact with another when we're defended. So a true human being is one that is in touch with the presence of being that's capable of being personal without having to be identified with the past, with history. It's a personal presence that the Sufis actually have talked about, have not illuminated a lot about, but call it the pearl beyond price. And when you think of how a pearl develops, there's a little grain of sand that gets in that shell, and it works around it such that it creates this beautiful gem. And that's what we do. We take life in, we let it work us, we digest it, we feel what it is and understand ourselves, and that allows the ego to hatch into the next evolutionary step from ego to person, to a true person, not just a person as an object, but a person that knows it's nestled in the arms of the universe. So that nestling is what creates that beautiful nacre around that pearl. The more it's nestled, the more it knows its nature, the more you know that's what you are, the expression can come into this world. The human being has a foot in both worlds and does not need to keep them separate. They stand completely in the now, beyond space and time. You can be anything and be personal. The expanse and be personal. You can be absolutely nothing and make complete and intimate contact. That's the beauty of the human being, is becoming that gem, that personal presence, the fullness of being. Being in this world, celebrating this world, having contact with this world, alive, full, clean, and graceful. And that is a potential for every human being. Life would be very different on the planet if everyone could walk it in confidence as that gem. So there's hope for that, maybe. Maybe not in this lifetime, but it's a potential for all of us. So that's the beauty of being able to know one's nature. And Morris, come home. And Morena, to be what we are, fully having our history, valuing our culture, but not having to be identified with it, not having to protect it. The protectiveness of our biology for survival became the protectiveness of the self. To transcend that doesn't mean leave your personal life behind. It means infuse it with knowledge and wisdom of that grace of our nature, the freedom that we are, where we don't have to protect that identity. It protects itself. It's indestructible. Good luck on your journey.